Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming to my first class, Expand Your Consciousness. I'm really honored to be here and be able to share this information with you. Thank you, Project Bring Me Life family. Shannon, CeeLo, thank you so much for having me be a part of this podcast and the great hall of classes. Thanks again to Jody last night for her Reiki class and all her wisdom that she shares all the time with us. Now tonight, we're going to talk about consciousness, what it is, how it affects our lives, the evolution of it, and a whole bunch of other yummy, awesome things, I think. So first, I wanted to start off with a quote, and it says, "If you were fully in your body, you would explode." The point of this quote is that who you are as a being is more than just your body. Your soul lives in your body. Your body is your house, your vehicle, however you want to describe it, for your soul. And who we are as souls is more than this life, more than this time, more than just your body, more than your brain. It's one of my favorite quotes. So what I wanted to talk about first is the layers of consciousness of a human, who we are. Who we are is multidimensional, and this can be a little difficult for the linear mind, for the logical mind to understand, to get a grasp on. So that's why I'm here to explain it. First, I want to talk about the body. The body is composed of trillions of cells. These cells and your organs and everything that your body is composed of is like a holistic system that holds your soul. And all of it has been born through the earth, through the evolution of the earth, the evolution of the entire universe, really, to evolve to the point of having human bodies. We evolved past mammals and the reptilian age, the dinosaur age, and humans came about. And it's all tied together. It's all very similar. Well, it's the same energy that created the stars and created the galaxies, the planets, mammals, all animals. It's all one life force that's intertwined and interconnected and birthing new life forms. And after about 14.2 billion years, we have human bodies. We have our skin and every cell, and its intelligence that it holds. It holds a level of consciousness. The body is innately intelligent, and as we begin to listen to our body, we can get out of the linear thinking mind and get into the awareness of the feelings that your body has. Your body holds your emotions. Your body feels the pain when you aren't eating healthy. You know, your body can tell when it's dehydrated, when it has to use the restroom. Your body is really intelligent. It's billions of years of evolution evolved into one of the most technologically advanced mechanism. It's not really it's an organic life form that is very intelligent, very smart, and it's our responsibility to take care of the body. But who we are as souls is not simply just the body. We are, and this is, you'll hear this quote a lot in spirituality, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience, I like to say, which I think is so true. And a lot of people identify with the body. It's easy to get wrapped up in the identification with your physical form, with physicality in general. So you identify with being a male or a female. You identify with your body being ugly or fat or short or tall, and your consciousness gets wrapped up in the identity of the body. And we suffer through that. We think that we're temporary bodies only here for 100 years, and that thought alone makes us suffer so deeply and profoundly that it has pretty much the human race, it's greatly slowed our evolution immensely in ways that are unmentionable. I feel the most important thing, if you can get away from this talk, is that who you are and what your consciousness is beyond just your human form, beyond body identification as a human or a male or female or whatever it is. The identification with the body is one of the main causes of suffering in general as a human. The next layer of consciousness that I want to move on to is the brain. Many scientists theorize that consciousness itself emerges from the brain. I disagree. I feel that consciousness is within everything. Okay, for a second, if we step back, and if I were to define for you what consciousness is, I would say it is intelligence itself, is the embodiment of intelligent life force energy that is within every single part of reality that we in the reality that we live in. Consciousness is what evolves and orchestrates the physical universe so that it can operate with all the other life forms that are already available in the physical realm. So you have the sun that lights the earth, that grows the plants, and the plants are able to absorb that light and grow. How is that possible? I say it's possible because there's one consciousness that's pervading all of reality, connecting everything and communicating and designing every aspect of the physical reality so that everything can work together and everything grows. So we're at the brain, and what I'm saying is that consciousness is outside of the brain as well. There's intelligence. You don't have to have a brain to be intelligent. Many scientists will disagree. And as a human, we get lost in the identification with what we hear in our brain. The level of consciousness that the brain exists at is more of like a survival mechanism where it sees itself as separate from the outside landscape. And it gets in fear that it might die or it'll lose its identity. As you're evolving as a spiritual being, You'll go through new belief patterns and learn new things about spirituality, and your ego, your brain, the brain is like a storehouse of information of everything you've ever experienced, and it's always referencing back to the past while you're experiencing something new. So if you're wrapped up in the identification with your thoughts or what you hear in your brain, you can get stuck in the past, they say. So you won't be as flexible. You can get narrow-minded if you're identified with the thinking voice in your head or your brain or your ego, as I think of them all as very similar things. The brain, the ego exists, it emerges from the brain field. And that is a certain consciousness program that has come out of humans over the last, say, 100,000 years, 200,000 years. It's evolved out of this place of fear, out of lack, of disconnection, of separation, and out of fear instead of love. So our minds are very chattery. Our minds are very... It's easy for the mind to want to have this need of more, have this need of needing to be more than others. And that's generally like the human brain. Everyone has the same program running on Earth right now called the ego, and it's not a personal problem. Don't make the ego into a personal problem, because it's not who you are as a person. And it's not just you who's dealing with it, it's everybody. Essentially, the brain is like a computer that you put information into, and unless you're using love to put that information in, what you're going to get out is, I mean, what you put in is what you get out. So if you think about our culture of the last 100,000 years, a lot of it's based around war and famine and all these, crises. So what we experience gets passed down, the cells and the DNA remember, and our brain triggers thoughts, so we get lost in our brain and in our ego and in physicality. Our brain convinces us that what we can see is all that is real. So the brain freaks out, so they say, on when things aren't going the way it wants to, because it believes so much in the physical universe, and it has its entire identity wrapped up in the physical universe, and it's really its consciousness itself is lost in the identity of the ego and the brain and your thoughts and physicality and that level of consciousness. So as you expand beyond, once you become aware that you're the awareness that's watching your thoughts, I am the awareness that's aware of thought, you're the space in which thought arises, and then in that moment your consciousness disengages from your brain and your ego and your linear thought patterns, so, and is freed into spirit, into the formless dimension that you are as consciousness, as a divine being. Which is so good. So the next natural step of consciousness, the next layer of consciousness, is we go from the body, the earth, the universe, we evolve into the brain and a higher level of understanding and education, and life is more innately has a higher capacity for consciousness to evolve through. So through the body, the consciousness can only evolve so far, and then through the brain it evolves farther, and through humans it evolves super far. And that next layer after the body, well, what's making the body? What holds the, or, no, it's the soul. Who you are is a being of light, a unique soul, which is hard to describe in earth terms, but it's a vast consciousness that is not bound by time or space or a body or limits or separation or planets or physicality. A soul is eternal. A soul is unfragmented. A soul is more powerful than anything in the physical universe. As a soul, who you are is not simply atoms and mass and thoughts. Who you are is a vibration that resonates to the level of the divine and is forged and created through the divine, or God, or whatever you want to call it. And it has a certain path that it takes. It can incarnate into bodies. It can be in any reality. It really, truly creates its own reality. We as souls are creators. We create through vibration. What is vibration but a measurement of consciousness, of different patterns and levels of the one consciousness that pervades all of reality. So if you think of the color spectrum and say like a rainbow, the visible light spectrum, each color vibrates at a certain bandwidth of vibratory light energy. So say you have red vibrating at the lowest and purple vibrating at the highest. Each color is defined by the bandwidth in which it operates in, say like 100 hertz to 200 hertz is red, whatever it is. And that visible light spectrum is only a small fragment of the entire spectrum of light, which is invisible in most every other way besides what we see as color, which is so beautiful, you know. Before consciousness couldn't even see color, before, you know, the eyeball evolved to perceive that which was already there in a higher dimension. So that can give us clues as to what our consciousness evolves through, these different layers of life that's really already there waiting for us. Such as when a blind being suddenly sees color, color wasn't created just in that moment, it was always there. just as the all-knowing consciousness that you are is always there to be tapped into, but it can get lost and identified within the ego and the mind and the body and the physical life that we experience, get wrapped up in time. Number one cause of suffering is the belief in time, that your consciousness is wrapped up in time. Who you are is beyond time, beyond form, and is also within time and within form, and it's so important to remember that, because it's easy once you get into the consciousness studies to feel physical reality can seem unfamiliar, and it's so important to remember to stay grounded and respect the body, respect the ego, respect the environment. You can see ancient sages long ago realizing they were their soul and starving their bodies, sacrificing their bodies, putting their bodies through torture to grow their own consciousness. And I feel that's a backwards way to do it. I feel we must love our bodies, take care of it, comfort it, be gentle to our bodies, be gentle on our own minds, and talk to our talk to our own brain. Let the dialogue that's happening expand and grow, and we as souls and as consciousness can use our brains to create. Our brains are like radio stations, and our soul frequency is a specific, unique vibration. And up until this point, your brain has been tuned to the body, to the ego, and to the culture that you were brought up with. And we're psychically tied to everyone that we know and that everyone on the planet and the entire cosmos, but also to our souls. So once we step out of the identification with the thoughts and the mind and the body, and your identification, your identity of who you are is your soul as an eternal being of light and divine creator, that awareness, the awareness of the consciousness, awareness of the space that you are, your mind is freed to channel that energy now, instead of, say, a lower realm of consciousness of just like the brain itself. The brain before was running on a program of just, oh, I am the brain. This is all I know. I have to protect myself and my identity, otherwise I will die because I'm a temporary form. But once the soul overrides that program, engages the brain, engages the body, grounds in, and lets the brain and body know, like, you are, I am the soul that's embodying you, and who we are together is the interaction of life itself, and together we can create a physical reality. The soul and the mind and the body connection, the holistic oneness of life, learning to love the body, letting the soul flow through the brain and into the body, into its creations, is the most important thing you can really learn as a human. I feel that you are a light being, you are a being of light, a soul, an eternal being that moves through this physical universe and uses the body and brain as if a divine vehicle that is a great blessing. Alright, so then you would think that would be it. Your soul and, the connection to the divine and God. But I've been able to dive deep into these consciousness studies and learn that it's kind of like your soul has a soul, and it's called the Oversoul. Let me sip this tea. That's some yummy tea. The Oversoul is an advanced teaching, but really it's like the beginner level, like it's innately who you are as a being. So as a human, it might seem advanced as a teaching, but once you're outside of your body and outside of this realm, it would just be the most natural thing. You wouldn't question it, or it would just be who you are. The Oversoul, if you can think of these layers, and it's almost like a pyramid. So let's flip that pyramid upside down. Say your human body's at the bottom. That's one brick, and then say 2 bricks is your brain, and then 3 bricks you realize your soul, and then your Oversoul stacked on top of that. Let's say it's like 12 bricks. Imagine that your soul, well, first of all, realize that your soul is beyond time. It's outside of the physical universe and is not operating on the same linear time frame that the human mind can understand. Your Oversoul holds multiple incarnations spanning across time, reality, planets, galaxies, dimensions, whatever it is, holds multiple incarnations at a time. So let's say that your Oversoul, let's say your soul has 12 incarnations at once. Let's say on Earth right now, you have a total of 12 incarnations at the same time on Earth, of all of who are an aspect of your soul, but is a fragmented piece of the soul incarnating into a body. So you have 12 of you, because you're a soul, you're not just a singular body, you're an entire reality that can incarnate as many bodies and things as you would like. So your soul has 12 incarnations, and your Oversoul, say it has 12 souls. And all 12 of those souls are having 12 incarnations all at once. But let's say that say one soul's incarnating 12 on Earth right now. Let's say soul number 2 of the Oversoul is incarnated in 12 beings as well, but let's say some of them are 1,000,000 years in the future, and some are 1,000,000 years in the past, or any time in between. And let's say and the soul 3 is incarnated in a totally different reality, and it's a totally different planet, and they might not even have planets in that other reality. And the point is that the soul and Oversoul will incarnate through multiple timelines at once, simultaneously. So your soul is on a farm it's 1620, and you're living in Ireland, and you're also and I'm like in this chair right now having this discussion about it. And it's still happening at the same time, even though it's in the past for one, or say in the future for the being in the 1600s. But truly they're all happening at a simultaneous time for the soul. In the realm of the soul, it's beyond time. So these are parallel lives. These are not past or future lives because everything is contained within the now. The now moment is all that there is. There is not multiple moments. I'll see you in a couple nows. There's only one now. When you came to watch this podcast, it's happening. You came into the room in the now. Say someone comes across this video in a week, it'll happen in the now. This video is truly videos are really truly recorded outside of time and space, because when you go share them, it was happening in the present moment when they recorded it, and it'll happen in the present moment when the new person watches it. And it's all happening in the now. And it's all happening simultaneously from the perspective of the Oversoul. Much like when you look at a reel of a movie strip, each image you can see in the present moment, but you can see the end scene of the movie at the end of the strip. And you can see the beginning scene of the movie at the beginning of the strip, but you know that you can see them both at the same time in the present moment. And you can even fold them on top of each other and see how they're connected. It's deeply important to realize that your oversoul, which may have multiple souls, operates outside of linear time. It can see a million years into the past, a million years in the future at the same time. It's pretty crazy. Your linear mind literally can't even grasp it. You're like, I never thought of myself as a future being. Maybe even those future incarnations that your soul has are reaching out to you now, are tapping into your reality. Maybe when you're dreaming, you're tapping into their reality, seeing something that's actually happening in a parallel life that's simultaneously happening in now. Oversouls. The next layer of consciousness is dubbed the higher self. The higher self. And that's termed that way from the perspective of the human. The human brain ego sees it as the higher self. It's more superior. And in practical terms, it truly is more superior. It can create realities. I don't think normal human brain can, well, it funnels realities through it, but the point is that it's an expanded consciousness. So the higher self. Got a little sidetracked. I think I need some tea. This is fun. This is a good first class. The higher self, I would say the higher self and the term God and source are one and the same thing. Intertwined, different mask, a different label for the same thing. But from the vantage of the human, it's called the higher self. But truly, it's who you are. The higher self is an entire reality, an entire universe in which God, the divine, it's another I'm like seeing that like how the soul incarnates into a body, God incarnates into higher selves and funnels consciousness through the higher self into the oversoul, through the souls into incarnations. The higher self has no birth, has no death, has no beginning or end. The higher self is the all-knowing, all-intelligent, has already experienced all time and space, billions of years in the past and trillions of years in the future, all at once. And so it has all knowledge, it knows everything, and just creates realities and creates physical realms for it to play in. But itself is not of the physical realm, it's of a more formless reality. So we got a question from Samantha. What up, Samantha? Is there a way to connect with your oversoul? What's your recommended method for doing so? So the most direct way to connect and bridge the gap between you and your higher self and your soul and your oversoul and all these labels for things which are really who you are on a higher level. And you're not just you're not just Samantha. You're not just a female. You're a vast being, and I mean vast. Like think of the size of the universe, and it's infinite. It's a big infinite universe. That's how big you are too. Like maybe this universe is just in your belly. You didn't even know. The most direct way to connect with the higher self is through the imagination. Through the inner child and the imagination. So what you want to do is start creating a dialogue with your higher self. It's important to realize that this dialogue and using your imagination to bridge the gap between you and your higher self is the most important relationship you can have. Because your imagination, say like however far you can expand your imagination, is like the tip of the iceberg of your imagination as a higher self. Your imagination as a higher self is unlimited, literally infinite, and creates realities. So you can get playful with it. You can ask for signs. You can just go into meditation and literally being as playful as possible, create a conversation with this invisible being that is you and is the same thing as God. And through the imagination, you can use really, I mean, it's the imagination. You can do anything with it. You could make a movie to get closer to your higher self. You can make a piece of art. You could just talk. You could do things like this. I mean, if you're here listening to this, essentially our higher selves and our oversouls came together to orchestrate for us to be here together right now. And so I would say what I would recommend the most is definitely just through the imagination. Yep, through the imagination. Because like I said, however far you can expand your imagination now is like the tip of the iceberg for your higher self. What does that mean? It means that as humans, we're like trying to figure everything out, But our brains are literally not meant for that. Our brains are good at receiving ideas, divine inspiration. What does that mean? That means that your higher self just gave you an idea that's way better than your brain can come up with because it has a way better vantage point and can see into the future, in the past, and has a much higher expanded level of consciousness. So, we as humans are higher self beings. Who we are is not a singular entity, though. We're not just a separate higher self from other higher selves or separate souls from every other souls. Who we are is a we. We are a multi-dimensional being because all of those layers, from the body to the brain to the soul to the oversoul to the higher self to God, it's all one intrinsic system. But there's also, all the people around you and everyone else incarnating, all the other souls operating in multiple levels, and those souls and bodies and higher selves are you too. We are all one, as they say. But truly, the term "we are one" can be limiting as well because obviously we are two. We are many. But we are all in oneness, is the truth of the matter. And we can have greater strength in our oneness through things like this and through connecting with our higher selves, through our imagination, through being playful, and allowing that information to come through. If you could step outside of your body and see who you are, you're so beautiful that it would bring you to tears. You're much closer to this image behind me than a human body. The circles, they're all overlapped and intertwined and everything's connected. That's what it's like. That's what the higher selves and the souls are like. They're all one, in oneness. As a kid, you ever use some scissors and papers to cut out, and I can't remember the words, but you cut it out, and then it's all like people holding hands, and you can hold on to the piece of paper and everyone's stretched out. That's what it's like as a soul. You're in higher realms. You're not just a singular entity. You're multiple beings all in oneness, vibrating at the same level. So everything is vibration, right? So, and our brains aren't generating thoughts. We're picking up and receiving thoughts. So when you have a telepathic moment with someone, you both have the same thought at the same time. What's actually happening is you're both picking up on the same wavelength. You're both vibrating at the same level. So you're both picking up, your brains are both picking up the same transmission from the multiverse at the exact same time. Because your brain is a radio station. You're not picking up on other people's thoughts. You're both receiving the same thought at the same time. Because you're both vibrating through the physical heart. You're all in the same resonance of consciousness the exact same time. So, I want to get into realms of angels and ascended masters. And if you're unfamiliar with that, there's the Christian angels, and they're pretty much messengers of God and the divine, is the story. So, but angels are not, in the end, they're non-denominational. Really what the angelic realm is another layer of consciousness of the entire reality, beyond the physical, within and beyond the physical dimension. But there's no separation. So if you've had contact with a spirit guide or an angel, who they are is really you. They're not superior to you. That's the perspective of the ego. Back to that, the ego needs an identity, so it gets its identity from comparison and separation. It sees everything as lesser or more than itself, and nothing is equal to the ego. So from the perspective of the soul, though, and perspective of the higher self, ooh, the angels, and maybe that was a little angel coming through. The angels and the ascended masters are the next level of consciousness that operates. Yep. And I'm trying to be picky and choosy with my words, so it's kind of hard to describe. Sorry if I get a little spacey. I'm just like receiving these like clumps of thought, and it's hard to like linearly like send it to you. So you are all the angels. You are Jesus, Metatron, the Christ, the Krishna, Christ consciousness. It's all a level of consciousness within the totality of creation. I like that one. It's every aspect of reality is a certain range of vibration of consciousness within a certain bandwidth, start and finish, of the totality of creation. So life is like an onion, and each part has its layer. And on the surface, there's Earth and the cosmos and your body, and then each layer that we dive deeper, we discover more. But it's all part of the same holistic system of reality. That's the nature of God, is oneness, is intrinsic interdependence. Nothing arises by itself. When you think of the context of anything, say you're just looking out your window and you see some trees and a car and another house, and you look at the car and you say, that's a car. But if you truly take notice, you'll notice that the car's on the earth. There's air. There's the background setting. You can't take a singular object out of its environment. It's intrinsically tied to the environment. The environment is it. When you go to research, say, like an apple from an apple tree, you can't forget about the sunlight, the nutrients from the soil, the entire water system of Earth, clouds. Everything else has to happen for everything else to be alive. Everything. It's all one holistic system. So it's the same thing in the higher realms. This onion of reality, or lotus flower, fractal nature of reality, this holographic reality. Oh man. We're flying. I got a lot to talk about. These layers, the angelic realm is just another deeper layer of who you are. Step up above that, you have the divine feminine, the goddess energy, and the divine masculine, the god energy. You have duality itself. Say that what I'm talking about so far is the natural order and hierarchy of consciousness, but it's more of a circle than the pyramid. Just get that point across. But there is a natural hierarchy to life, I've found, just as red vibrates lower than purple, literally, at a slower rate. Not better or worse, just different. Nothing is better or worse, just different. No thing is better or worse than anything else, just different. Because it's all part of the one life. So the divine masculine, let's just say, take the yin yang. There's, honestly, I tend to think of it as the divine masculine is straight lines. Take this image again. The straight lines. And the divine feminine is the curvy lines of the entire cosmos. So if reality was just a drawing, you'd have straight figures, pyramids, and then you have circles and curves and femininity, softness. Masculinity is, the mountains and the rocks, and the feminine power is the river that flows. It's all, as soon as, because we're reaching the top layer of consciousness itself. As soon as God consciousness as soon as it incarnates into itself, it splits into duality, into the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and those are the highest overarching powers of all of reality and consciousness. And then it goes into the angelic realms, and then the ascended masters, and then they send messages to the souls and interact with physical reality, and it's all intertwined. So beyond the divine masculine and divine feminine, you have unfragmented light. You have consciousness itself, all-knowing, eternal, no time or space, source, spirit, divine, 0 point to consciousness. There's no words to actually describe it that would fit the description. It's all a pointer. Just as when I'm pointing at the moon, my finger is not the moon. That's what I'm trying to get you into your souls, brains, bodies, every layer of who you are right now. What I'm pointing at is that, but the words that I'm saying are not it. It's just a pointer in the right direction. So the highest level of consciousness is God, is unfragmented light consciousness. Light can be defined as intelligence. Really, at the highest level, light is love. The highest and most true term for who you are is love. The embodiment of love is who you are and what everything is. Beyond the soul, beyond anything that's ever happened to you, the innate energy that you are is love and can be defined as love. And it's in this realm of wholeness. There's nothing missing in the highest levels of consciousness, the highest reality of light and eternal nature. of creation itself. And beyond that is nothingness, emptiness, no thingness, otherwise described as the Tao, the Tao. If you've ever heard of the ancient scriptures of the Tao Te Ching, the first line in the book says, "The eternal Tao that can be spoken of is not the eternal Tao." The eternal Tao that can be spoken of is not the eternal Tao. What that means is any words that you use to describe the nothingness that the entire, that even say God sprang from, is not it's a fragmented description of that which cannot be explained or covered by words, because what it is a feeling. It's the most subtle layer of consciousness, but the most true layer of you is space, nothingness, space consciousness is the ultimate layer of who you are. Look outside your eyes right now, and as you perceive, notice that there's a space in which it all arises from. Notice that as you think and as you listen to me, if there wasn't a space in who you are and who is listening to what I'm saying, nothing would work. We are the awareness that is aware of life itself. We are the space in which life arises. We are the divine witness of creation. That is our eternal purpose, to witness, to perceive through the pure awareness that's not diluted by the thoughts. Not that it's bad to have thoughts, it's just that you are not your thoughts. You are the perceiver. You are the observer that's watching the thoughts. And that realization in and of itself is the most liberating feeling you can have. Because after that, there's no need to silence your mind. You are space consciousness. You are silence itself. And the identification with thoughts and physicality leads to our suffering and makes us, really makes people psychotic. Because if you believe that you're going to die, you act a certain way. But if you know that you're eternal being of love and light with infinite layers of consciousness, multiple incarnations at once in multiple realities and times and spaces, problems have less of a weight. There's not as much. It's like, oh, well, I'm floating through a crystal ball filled with water, orbiting around a ball of fire on the edge of a galaxy that's one of like 0.01% of all galaxies in existence, and this is just one reality. There's nothing really to worry about. It's all good. Because you're an eternal soul and you'll have many incarnations. You are having many incarnations right now at this moment. Okay, so the deepest layer, once again, of our consciousness is this space consciousness. So that's pretty much the secret of life itself. Can I be a space for what's happening now? Can I hold space? Can I be myself, not try to think a lot of things to figure it out? Can I hold space for what's happening? Because when you do hold space, you'll receive, you'll align yourself energetically with your higher self, your highest self, and you'll receive the thoughts that you need to do the most efficient task to get out of the problem, or see the positive spin on whatever is happening. Say something's negative is happening, the positive spin from the soul's perspective is that if something negative is happening to you, you can step back into your deepest layer of witnessing consciousness and feel the temporariness of whatever is that arising in front of you, and you can know that that will pass. You're an eternal being of light. And through that alignment with the highest, deepest layer of who you are, that spacious consciousness, that emptiness in which the cup can be filled, the cup is useless. Okay, what's the most effective part of a cup? It's the emptiness of the cup. If the cup weren't empty, it could never be filled. So that's just the nature of a cup, and similar nature to who we are. Sometimes if I lose my train of thought, I'm just like in my spacious consciousness. I'm like, oh, I don't know where I was or where I'm going or anything, because no thing arises in that deeper layer of consciousness. So you can utilize your brain way better after you realize that, because you can let the divine you can step back, create that dialogue with the higher self, and allow the higher self to properly give you the thoughts that you need to have to get out of the situation, or to take the most direct action that will, be the most liberating or enlightening for everyone. Because from where we are in this reality is like we're like in the deep part of the sea of the ocean in terms of the soul. We're the veil of illusion that we have in this reality is so thick that we can't see in front of ourselves, or we can only see what's in front of ourselves, but not beyond that. But from the perspective of the Oversoul and the higher self, they're on the surface. They can see over the surface. And they can lay out the course for you as long as you're able to step back, lose the ego, and receive the divine inspiration by using your brain like a radio station, vibrating through the heart space, aligning with your soul. And the thoughts come, the inspiration comes, the ideas come, slowly but surely. Everything, all your dreams come through this process of detangling your consciousness all the way back to the nothingness that you are, to allow God to pour through, to allow the divine, the creator, to pour through. One of my favorite quotes of all time, this Persian Sufi poet named Hafiz, he said, "I am but a hole in God's flute." And that's really the entire teaching of what I'm trying to get across. I am but a hole in God's flute. We try to use our linear minds and we close ourselves off to life, but God's trying to flow through us, through our openness of divine inspiration, because we're trying to think our way through life, but our brains aren't designed for that. Our brains are radio stations of consciousness, so tapping in to your unique soul and higher self gives you the exact thoughts you need, and the exact, as if you're in a movie and it's like someone's like in your earbud like, this is the next line, this is where you should go. That's what your higher self and Oversoul can do for you in this reality. It can bring it into physicality, that connection to spirit. The return to spirit is the I am presence that is sitting behind your mind, your ego, and your body. I am is the truth of who you are. Not I am this or I am that, just I am. The I amness of who you are will never be diminished or can never be diminished ever. And once you realize the eternal nature of your I am higher self, the I amness of who you are, physical reality has less grip on you and you suffer less literally because your identity is no longer wrapped up in physical forms. Your identity is an innate knowingness that who you are is eternal and fine and forged in love and light, and you're crazy. You're so cool. Yep, that's when people are talking about downloads, like, oh, I got a download. Bro, I got a download right now. They stepped out of their linear stream of consciousness and received divine inspiration because for a second there was a gap in their consciousness. The more gaps there are in the stream of your consciousness, the more space, the more the divine inspiration comes. Well, we're a little bit over an hour. I'll talk about one more thing. In my notes I have, it says, no outside. If I could share another little diamond of thought with you, is that there is no outside. You're walking around inside of your own mind. Your soul is projecting through your brain, through your chakras, through your third eye, projecting like a movie projector this physical reality, and you're walking around inside your own mind because who you are is the creator, is God, and your God walking around inside of yourself. So everything you see right now is a projection of the deepest parts of your soul. There is no outside. It's crazy. Nothing is truly physical. Everything is a temporary form manifested. That's it. It's temporary and ever-changing. The only constant is change. Everything is always evolving. So, light photons in this physical reality, which is pretty much what the reality is composed of, are flickering in and out of waveform and like a physical atom. And the only thing that differentiates how the atoms know to stay in physicality and not just energy, waveform, formless, is there is an observer of consciousness, such as a human, or I mean really consciousness is all watching itself. And it's an intense one. You're walking around inside your own mind, and you've been playing hide and seek with yourself your entire life to now discover that who you are is what you've been looking for, the feeling you've been missing. You can't get satisfaction because you are satisfaction. I can't get no satisfaction because I'm trying to pull satisfaction from the temporary waveforms of life that aren't even real. It's just a projection of my own mind, and the feeling that I'm looking for is actually tied up with the realization of who I am as beyond this current dimension. You are satisfaction. You are love. You are the ecstasy of the universe. The vibration of your soul, you can hear it vibrating, and if you align it with your physical heart, that feeling is so good. Who you are feels so good. It's ecstatic, it's blissful. These higher levels of enlightenment are all very blissful because that's who you are. And it's who we are. We are all the same being. We are love. To summarize this entire talk, we are a love onion, essentially. And you have infinite, parallel, simultaneous realities going on throughout your consciousness that you cannot perceive through the linear vantage point of the human ego and brain and body. But through the corners, the side of your eye, the side of your consciousness, the peripherals of your consciousness, these other realities can be seen, perceived, and interacted with. And it's time to connect with them. And you can only connect with them in the now. They're happening right now. So that pretty much sums up what I want to talk about. I don't know if there's any questions or anything like that. Doesn't look like it. So I just want to thank you for coming and being here, being present, being in your I am presence. That's what it's all about. Being in the now with your space consciousness. Secret of life, can I be a space for what is? Thank you.